All right, it is time for the weather model discussion here for Wednesday, March the 29th. How's it going, everyone? William Cole here in the Storm Studio. And of course, this is our behind the scenes look at how we're putting together the forecast of the day. Not so much looking at the pretty graphics, but we're going to show you the raw graphics, the raw stuff here over the next several minutes. And again, kind of take you behind the scenes on the thought process of how we're putting this together. We've got a lot going on, truly beginning tomorrow, Thursday, into Friday, into Sunday, and then in the parts of next week as well, where we do have an opportunity of active weather, potentially severe weather, possibly each and every one of those days. So again, a lot going on. Kind of on a side note, we typically put this on our social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Again, if you're watching it today there, feel free to give it a like, feel free to leave a comment below as well. But we may expand the segment. I mean, these have been about 20 or 25 minutes in length, and we may expand these to right around 30 minutes, and we may put this on our channel in the evening, for example, like 7:30 and at like 9:30, and kind of let that segment of our viewers also watch this and again see if that's something they're interested in, right? So we've kind of found our social media viewers, typically like people who watch on YouTube, they don't necessarily watch us on Roku, Apple, Amazon Fire TV, or on our mobile app. So we kind of have these two audiences, and like I said, really our social media people have just watched these. And so like I said, we may expand this, we may try that next week or the week after, and again just see what kind of feedback we get from the people who watch us again on the connected TVs, and just kind of see how that works. So we'll see about that, and if so, these may become just a few minutes longer, and maybe you'll like that or maybe you won't. But okay, let's go and dive into this. We've got, like I mentioned, a lot going on. So number one, and truly some of the weather changes even began this morning, right? We had some scattered showers around this morning. And just looking from Reunion Tower at downtown Dallas there, again, just a great 4K shot. It's still cloudy. And again, you know, the morning showery activity dried up. There wasn't, as far as the rain gauge amounts went, there wasn't much of it, right? I mean, we're talking about a couple hundredths. We're talking about 1/10 of an inch in some locations. Even the roadways this morning, again, for the morning commute, they were damp, but they weren't necessarily wet. But the cloud cover that's lingered and has really persisted through most of the day has really thrown a wrench in our temperatures, right? I mean, earlier this morning, I was forecasting 68. It's about where the data was. At noon, I updated it to 66. We're currently only at 63. And so again, temperatures have just not moved a whole lot if the clouds persisted where you are. There's some other locations, like off to the northeast, up around the Paris area, live temperatures here that are at 67, down around Hamilton 67. But again, you can see kind of where that little hue of green is, right up and down the 35 corridor. That's where temperatures have been held down, mainly, again, just because of the cloud cover. So let's do this. Let's go and switch over to the raw data. Now, this is what I'm talking about, where we're going to go from the prettier graphics over to the raw stuff, okay? But let me go and give you a different zoom. Let me go and show you this. And this is the visible satellite imagery, and I've also put on the radar composite here as well. This is just off of the NextLab data. And again, you can see the area of white. I mean, that's basically the cloud cover that we've been dealing with here throughout the day, right? So Metroplex being, if I can get this to work, Metroplex being right about here. And we'll try this one more time. Let's see. You know, the telestrator does not always like us, and today may be a day that the telestrator is not going to cooperate. We'll try this one more time, and that doesn't look like it's going to, so that's okay. So you saw where the cursor was, right? You can't see the cursor on there today? Okay. So Metroplex being right about there. The area of gray, obviously that's the cloud cover, and it's just hung tough there. There go the showers from this morning. Take a look at them down around the parishes of Louisiana. It was a very small, compact storm system moved across our area this morning. Again, we just didn't have a lot of moisture for it to work with, right? Our air mass, the humidity, especially at the lower levels, was very dry, and it still is very dry. And even though there were raindrops falling, some of those were even evaporating before they hit the ground, right? And in fact, it even took maybe an hour or two where on radar it looked like it was raining, but none of it was reaching the ground. So it's called top-down moistening of the atmosphere, right? We had to bring some moisture down in order to even get the raindrops to the surface. So in those events, typically you're never looking for much in the way of actual precipitation. Okay, so from there, let's go and take a look at our overall analysis here. And man, oh man, this is when I really wish we had the telestrator working. Like I said, I'm not sure what's going on with it. This thing kind of gives us issues every once in a while, and so it just doesn't want to work today. Sometimes it's not open. When we do these, typically it's not open, or today it doesn't want to work. So again, you'll just have to follow the mouse, and hopefully you can kind of follow along. So this is from the Storm Prediction Center. This is their meso analysis page, and if you look carefully where the cursor is, you can see this little dip that again is down now currently across parts of Louisiana. That was just a little ripple in the jet stream flow. Again, that's what came through earlier this morning. Well to the north, we still have our big, deeper storm trough. That's what gave us the windy cold front yesterday morning. And then as you look out to the west, we have this ridging pattern, which is temporary for tonight. Doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And then where the cursor is out on the west coast, that's where we have our next upper level storm system coming in. And it's a powerhouse storm system. In fact, it's now another bomb cyclone off the California coast. And that will come out in two pieces, a lead wave tomorrow, Thursday, and then the main storm on Friday. And it will give us an opportunity of rain and storms. The data is not, I'll be honest, the data is less and less excited about our opportunity of rain and storms. I still think we'll see something, but the data is not overly excited. We'll look at that, but hidden within the data, which we kind of talked about yesterday for Sunday, there's going to be an opportunity of another storm coming out. It's a small compact storm as well, and the cold front that comes through on Friday, it's going to lift back to the north as a warm front, and the data wasn't too excited about it. It's a little more excited about it today, but the parameters on Sunday may come together, and again, the key word on this is may, because it's not locked in at this point whatsoever, may come together to give us a pretty decent opportunity of some severe weather. So if you're making weekend plans, circle Sunday for right now. It could really not be a big deal whatsoever, or again, it could be something we really have to track carefully. So more information on that again coming up momentarily as well. So from there, we're just going to kind of skip off the meso analysis page since I don't have the telestrator working today. And what we'll do is we'll look at the SPC outlook here, the Storm Prediction Center outlook, and then we'll go into the raw computer model data, and I'll walk you through that as well. Here's the different zoom. I kind of use both of these zooms, but here we go. So this is for today. Across the entire United States, there's no opportunity of severe weather, right? The lighter shade of green, that means an opportunity of convective weather, general thunderstorms, nothing out of the ordinary, right? Some thunder, some lightning, maybe some small hail, maybe some gusty winds, but nothing that reaches severe criteria, no organized severe weather, okay? So today for severe weather, kind of a swing and a miss. Here we go. So for tomorrow, Thursday, marginal risk. Notice it does come down into parts of North Texas. That's as kind of the lead wave, the first piece of this upper level storm system coming out of the west begins to arrive. We're going to have a dry line form. The dry line is going to be well out to the west. And, you know, our cap here in North Texas, which is a warm layer of air above the surface, and it's basically, it inhibits thunderstorm development. And depending on how warm the cap is, how strong it is, it can either be an absolute that it completely inhibits thunderstorm development, and you'll know that by the strength of the cap, right, the reading on that, you'll know that thunderstorm activity is actually not possible. Okay, so sometimes you can say zero, it's not going to happen, the cap is too warm, or the cap can be marginal where potentially you can break it, but it may or may not happen. And so for tomorrow, Thursday, it's one of those deals, it may or may not happen, but the data, the model data I'm going to show you, not really jumping up and down. So we may have a couple storms, we may not. If we did have storms tomorrow, they look elevated, and I think the only real concern tomorrow would be hail, maybe some gusty winds, but I think here in North Texas locally, the overall tornado threat, anytime you're dealing with elevated storms, it's never zero, but it's pretty minimal, okay? So compared to our last several severe weather events, the one potentially that we're dealing with Thursday into Friday may be on the lower end here, which of course is always good. There's the outlook for Friday. And either I'm going to completely agree with the SPC for North Texas, or we may still need to move this back further to the west. They basically have Dallas County as the beginning of the marginal risk. It looked like there was some data, depending on what you want to look at. You can look at the 3-kilometer NAM, maybe developing storms over the Metroplex between 7 and 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, and then a broken line pushes off to the east, or the newest data with the HER model, which I'll show you here in a moment, which is the hourly high-resolution rapid refresh, but every 6 hours you get that extended view of 48 hours, basically develops stuff pretty well east of the Metroplex, and it's out of our area pretty quickly. And so if that's the case, again, Thursday and Friday, both of them for us, I mean, we've got some rain probabilities. Some folks may see some storms, but as far as the coverage of who sees storms and is it truly that big of a deal, may be pretty minimal. Okay, now it's different if storms form over the Metroplex 7 to 10, because then we have most of the morning into the afternoon where some folks may be under the gun. Okay. So it's still even with some of the high res data coming in, it's not completely locked in. Again, we'll look at that coming up. So there is your Saturday. Nothing showing up for Saturday. And here's the interesting part of this. For Sunday, right now, the Storm Prediction Center not penciling anything in, right? Again, we're doing our due diligence here locally because this may be a local system, so to speak, not necessarily completely local, it's still regional, but again on Sunday, some of these parameters coming together with this system that we may have an opportunity of severe weather, right? Okay, so even though the Storm Prediction Center at this point not even highlighting it, again, we got to keep our eye on that, okay? And then just going out over the next several days, that's essentially it. As we get into next week, by Wednesday, Thursday, even into Friday, there's another storm that comes out, but it's going to be in slow motion, and it may give us several waves of either rain, number one, or opportunities of severe weather within those rain opportunities. So we're in a really progressive pattern compared to the last two springs. And again, all this can change, it can change on a dime, but the last several springs, I mean, we've trended below normal rainfall, we've trended below normal thunderstorms, and we've trended well below normal on severe weather. We want to trend well below normal on severe weather, that's good, but as we're now kind of in this neutral phase going back to El Nino, potentially back to El Nino, it can mean we go back to pretty active weather here in North Texas. And I think we're actually beginning to see that. The signals are there. And again, what we've seen so far through March, if that's any indication for the rest of our spring, this may be a very, very active spring. Too early to make that determination yet. Okay, so let's come over to the model data. And let's see what we can do with this. And again, like I said, we don't have the telestrator, but we're still going to make the best we can with this. And tomorrow we will have the telestrator, I promise you. We'll take one more look and figure out what's going on. Okay, so a couple things going on here. And again, I'm just trying to see if you can really see the mouse. I think you can see the cursor. Okay, so where I'm circling, that's our big storm that's coming in, right? It's still well out on the west coast. You're seeing that and you're thinking, it's several days out. No, that's inbound for part of it tomorrow, and then again, the other piece on Friday. So even though it just kind of meandered its way down the coast of California, it's really going to kick it in, right? It's going to put it in high gear, and it's going to be making tracks now towards the southern plains. So you can see going forward in time, here it is. And it does come out in two pieces. If you look at this carefully, there's a little lead wave ahead of it. And we talked about this either yesterday or the day before. Sometimes when you hear the term lead wave, if you're a storm chaser or you're a severe weather enthusiast, you hear that term and your ears begin to perk up, right? Sometimes lead wave can be a real kicker, right? It can be a real deal kicker in spring for an opportunity of severe weather or enhanced severe weather, depending on what the setup is. In this situation, just for the fact we're capped out, right? We've got a pretty intense cap. It's not really going to be that big of a deal, right? We may still have the opportunity because it's not an absolute cap, okay? We may still have the opportunity of a couple storms to develop, but again, they still look elevated. The moisture content is not completely going to return, talking about the humidity, because we're so dry in time, so the storms will be elevated. A bit of a different situation as we get into Friday as the main storm comes out, but again, it's the timing of the main storm. You can see it's a negative tilt trough, right? On the axis, it leans back to the left, so it's negative tilt, which can be a little more conducive for severe weather. But again, the timing is kind of off, right? We're not talking about kind of this late afternoon. We've primed the atmosphere. We've warmed the atmosphere. We have a ton of instability to work with. It's not really there, right? We're talking about kind of a morning, early afternoon deal. And even though more moisture will be available on Friday, it's really not prime. And the track of the storm is further to the north. You can see the core of it is truly up in parts of the Central Plains into parts of Oklahoma. Okay, let me keep this going. Let me just finish loading these up. Let me click the right button. And so we'll go from Friday. I'm just going to kind of accelerate this in time. Notice this next little storm. Little storm there in Southern California. See that little ball of energy? This is one it's trying to sneak in. A lot of people aren't necessarily paying a lot of attention to this one, okay? It's trying to sneak in on us. Look where this one goes, though. It moves right across North Texas, Okay, but it's a small storm, right? It's a very small storm, but it's progressive. It's moving, and it moves right across North Texas. Okay, so we're going to take a closer look at that one coming up. That may be a Sunday rain chance. Okay, as that comes through just ahead of a storm, remember it's always a counterclockwise spin. So the cold front that comes through on Friday with our other system, again, it's going to come back to the north as a warm front just ahead of that system, and it's going to bring a pretty decent amount of warm, moist, unstable air with it. And warm fronts are notorious for severe weather, right? I mean, they're just for severe weather, and it appears as though the cap is going to be weak enough that, again, we may be talking about some active weather on Sunday. Okay, okay, so there's Sunday. Let's keep this rolling. Here comes that next storm out, just a big storm, and again, you see it come out early, the middle parts of next week rather, and it comes out in a couple pieces, right? You see the initial piece right there, and then you kind of see the back end of it continuing, and you just see it just kind of stall out there. And even though, again, this one doesn't necessarily move directly across North Texas, it's going to be in the neighborhood, and even for us, it's going to keep our pattern active, okay? And then after that, you see one more storm. It's kind of stalled, one more deep trough across parts of Southern California. That will eventually come out, but then also notice our flow, right? And again, we don't have the telestrator, so it's kind of hard to notate, but look at the cursor, see how the flow pattern is coming up from the southwest. This time of year into the summer, you get a southwesterly flow. Number one, it can be a turbulent flow. Sometimes you can get little impulses, which can keep your pattern active. If you don't have impulses to keep the pattern active with daily opportunities of rain and storms, it's a warm pattern, and it is going to be a warm pattern for us. We may be talking about some high temperatures in the 90s. Okay, so we've truly got a little bit of everything going on over the near to medium range. Okay, let's take a look at temperatures here too. And what time is it? We've got to kind of keep this one going today, only for the fact I've got to do our normal weather too, and we're running just a little bit behind. Let's just take a look at air mass change quickly, okay? And so again, what we're looking for, again, within these troughs that come through, they all have chillier air that pool down into them, right? That's where our cold fronts come from. And so we're just kind of walking you through the next 10 days here through the Euro, looking for any significant air mass change. This time of year, we begin to kind of get these air mass cold fronts, continental cold fronts, Pacific cold fronts, where, yeah, they may cool you down 5 or 10 degrees or maybe slightly below normal, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. It's more so a trigger of active weather, right? And what we're watching is to make sure there's no Canadian air, the darker blues, that sneak into any of those fronts and try and come down, because then that's a big deal, right? Because we've started our growing season. There's that southwesterly flow kicking, and look at that. Look at our temperatures take off. And then there's that last storm coming in from the Pacific. Now take a look at that though. This is what I'm talking about, right? So if you're up in Kansas, if you're up in Oklahoma, look at that. You've got some Canadian air that snuck down into that midweek storm. Talking about next week, that midweek storm. Look how that wrapped that, again, as these spin counterclockwise, right? They're pulling that, and that one took a far enough track to the north that it did tap it, and it's pulling, and you can see the little comma head, the little finger coming around. It's literally pulling like a centrifuge that Canadian air down into it. So again, if you're like in Kansas, maybe you see the blues even up in Oklahoma. I mean, that's kind of a big time cold front. Again, not big time as in we're not talking about like sub-zero Arctic, anything like that, but as far as, you know, an early growing season cold front, that might be a big deal for the folks up there, right? So that's what we're always keeping our eyes on here, to make sure none of that gets that far south. And even though that front, I mean, you know, by the middle parts of next week, I mean, we may have a decent cool down. That may put us back in the 60s, or maybe even a little cooler. And then look at that, then we cool off. Look at that behind that. I mean, we really cool off. So our temperatures are going to go from well above normal to what appears to be in about 10 days. I mean, I mean, again, we're not talking about some crazy, I mean, you see where the temperatures are, but I mean, we're going to trend what appears to be below normal heading into the first part of April, which will be interesting. The last couple Aprils, we've trended below normal. We've had cool Aprils, and which has suppressed a lot of our severe weather. That'll be interesting. Let's see if that trend continues. Okay, so from there, let's look at the high-res data for tomorrow. And then, like I said, I apologize, we've got to go so fast on this today, but like I said, I've got to get our normal weather going here too. So this is the HER model, and this will be the 18Z run. So I'm taking it back 1 hour. Again, this will be the extended 48-hour run. And I'm just going to fast forward this through tomorrow, Thursday. And there it is. I mean, you see a few blips of green, right? I mean, we've got the cap. the model saying maybe, I mean, and this is a future radar depiction too, right? So if one of these areas of green, if the model thought it was going to take off as a thunderstorm or anything we should be concerned about, it would color it in, right? It would color it in with yellow, orange, purple, whatever. So we're getting a few signals from this that maybe at some point the cap maybe could become weak enough, or we might be able to get an updraft through the cap that maybe we could get a cell or two to go, but that's not a strong look at all. I mean, that look, almost you want to read it as though not much tomorrow is going to happen. Okay, it's not, again, this is not an absolute cap, so we cannot rule out a rain chance. I've got a 30% opportunity for tomorrow. We may see a storm or two, okay? And we got to continue to watch this through the evening and especially first thing tomorrow, okay, to make sure there's no change on that. Because again, if a storm were to go up tomorrow, we could have some big hail. We could have up to golf ball size hail, and that's a big deal. Okay, so from there, this will end Friday morning. But take a look at this. This is Friday morning. I'm in now. And there's the front sneaking through. There's the front lighting up over around Paris and up into the Arklatex. And there's the front through North Texas that'll be by about 2 p.m. Friday. So the HER model not really doing much, okay, on Friday. So let's come back over to the 3K NAM. And this is what was a little more bullish. And I'll be very honest with you, with the convective weather, the HER model does well, right? When we're talking about the opportunity of rain and storms, it's the HER model you want to use, right? I looked at the 3K earlier because we were just out of range on that HER model, right? It only goes out 48 hours. And so to get a little bit further in time, I was using the 3K NAM. In fact, I even used it on air, only because this goes out 60 hours, right? And this is still high res, 3 kilometer data. The 3 kilometer data is, this NAM specifically here, is good with air mass, right? It's good with wintry precipitation. It's good with air mass. As a CAM model, right, a convective allowing model, it's not very good, okay? So you typically would not want to base your forecast off of the 3K NAM, okay? And I know a lot of people talk about it, but it's really not there, okay? So let's go and take a look at this. So here's the latest run of the 3K. The 3K is trying to show, the 3K NAM is trying to show us that maybe up along the Red River, up in Oklahoma, truly, there might be a storm late tomorrow. So it's basically developing one storm. Again, still a trend we got to watch, right? Because we don't have that absolute cap. There we go through Thursday night. Let's get into Friday morning. We're in Friday morning. Yeah, look, it's doing the same thing. I mean, there's 9 a.m. Friday. It's got the front west of, or east of the Metroplex, east of the Metroplex rather. I said west, then had a tongue twister too. But look at that. I mean, so Metroplex, obviously right about here where the cursor is. Yeah, and there it's lighting up the front later in the day. Look at that as it gets over into the Piney Woods and also the Arklatex. So if you're here in North Texas, and again, some of our eastern counties, and it's over around Tyler. Looks like Van Zant County, down towards Henderson, Anderson County. So for our friends down there. Maybe up towards Lamar County, up towards Paris. But again, it's close enough still to the Metroplex. We're watching, and we're still, that's still about 48 hours out, right? Again, subject to change, 48 hours out with severe weather, subject to change, subject to change, subject to change. We're saying that 3 times, okay? So we'll watch that. But again, this setup, the timing has just been off, right? The timing on this system has just been off, and we'll see exactly how that plays out. And again, we don't want severe weather, but the biggest deal is the rain probability, right? If you're a forecaster and you got a 50% rain probability, there are some locations over in our eastern counties where they may get that opportunity of rain and storms, but if it looks like it's going to be a pretty big miss for the Metroplex and that 50% on the 12-day is for the Metroplex, well, then that's a big deal. You've got to begin to wind that down, but the confidence is still kind of not there, because if those storms do form further to the west, well, there could be some hail, there could be some wind, and it's a big deal for the Metroplex, so you don't necessarily want to dial down that rain probability yet. Because when people see 30%, they don't really care. When they see 50 or above, that's when it gets their attention. So right now you still need to keep it kind of within their attention, so to speak, and so we don't want to dial it down yet, but tomorrow we may need to, if this trend holds. Okay, from there, one other thing, I want to touch on this as well, because I'm going to talk about this evening, is that even though we have that front coming through, right behind it, we have a very, very dry air mass coming in. And even though we're talking about rain and storms from 35 off to the east, and I'm trying to find this is just so small to see on here that it's just almost impossible, but I'm looking for, if we can find this on here. Like I said, the viewer that I have, and I know I say this every day, but the viewer for this browser is just, I mean, when I say it's microscopic, it's probably, you would laugh if you saw how small this was, what I'm having to look at. Where I'm going with this is take a look at the dew points behind this front, right? This is a Pacific cold front coming in, and this is end day Friday. This is by 2 p.m. Friday, but the dew points, the humidity, and we're going to have a gusty westerly wind in our western counties all the way to the 35 corridor. This is going to be big grass fire danger, okay? It could be a big fire danger day in our western counties. So we're talking about severe weather, 35 east. We're talking about fire danger, dry, no humidity, 35 west, okay? So if you live out in our western counties, more rural area, fire danger day for you folks on Friday, okay? So please do pay attention to that as well. Obviously no outdoor burning, none of that. Okay, let me take you out into the extended quickly here. And let me do this quickly. And sorry, I have to keep peeking at the time there. I don't know what happened today. We are running behind. Okay, this is what I want to do. This is the latest run of the Euro. I want to take a quick peek here at Sunday. And here we go, as we get into Sunday, again, this is where we have that little compact storm coming through. We have a warm front that's going to be lifting back to the north. And again, you see somewhere from the Metroplex into central Texas, possibly off into East Texas, there's going to be an opportunity of storms, right? This is not a future radar depiction. This is, again, precipitation opportunity from a global model. We're just taking signals from this. But again, somewhere there could be storms. Here in the Metroplex, I've got about a 40% opportunity on Sunday. And again, dealing with the warm front, we may have some severe weather, right? If this plays out just right, still several days on down the road. Sunday's definitely a day we need to keep an eye on. I want to take you to the middle part of next week. And again, here comes our next front. That'll be Wednesday. But then, similar story, as that piece lifts off to the north, here comes another piece down. Remember, as we looked at that on the vorticity chart, we've got a warm front lifting back to the north. And here we go, more opportunities of rain and storms. Notice up along the Red River Valley, we're going to be talking about the opportunity from the Metroplex south of rain and storms. I don't think this is really going to happen, but up along the Red River Valley, there's a little speckle right there of maybe even some frozen precipitation. It's going to be cool enough up along the Red River Valley. Again, I don't necessarily see that happening. Doesn't necessarily mean freezing either, but again, it can just mean falling down. That obviously conditions above are chilly enough. I don't think we're going to be that cool. But again, it's springtime. I mean, these are dynamic systems. And again, you can see closing out that upcoming week, again, looks unsettled as well. Any of that could also be severe. So we've got a lot going on, which is typical for this time of year. Okay, what I want to do, let me just go and show you the temperature trend here. And then we got to go. Very latest run. This is, again, the national blend of models. This is what I like to forecast off of. 72 tomorrow. Sounds about right. Friday, the temperatures jump behind that front. Again, very dry air mass. Temperatures are going to take off on us. And then Saturday, Sunday, a little bit, we'll call it milder. Saturday with highs in the 70s. Again, Sunday, that warm front begins to come to the north, 78. And then we get in that southwesterly flow Monday into Tuesday. Temperatures near 90. Okay, the data here has 89 for both days. And then we trend down with that next system. And again, you can see even the daytime highs there trending down into the 60s. We were looking at the euro. Let's take a quick peek here at just what the euro is showing. Euro's similar, but again, the euro's a little more bullish. I mean, euro's taking us down to like 60, 61. Remember where we saw some of that blue? I mean, really getting pretty close to North Texas. I mean, we may be talking about highs potentially near 60 or even in the upper 50s. So we've got some chillier weather. Again, you can see cooler weather, really not chillier, right? Cooler weather possible towards the end of the following week. As again, remember that big storm to the north funnels down some of that Canadian air. So again, an interesting pattern. By the way, Tuesday, the euro has 94, right? So the euro, it's a little more extreme. And again, as you look at the blend of models, again, it's more blended out, right? You don't necessarily get those big peaks and valleys, those big extremes, even though you have to watch for them, because sometimes those will verify. Sometimes those big temperature jumps will verify. But again, we like to kind of blend it out and not have a crazy extreme looking forecast. That's why I like the blend of models. So that's where we are, folks. Again, let me go and put up our mobile app. If you haven't downloaded our mobile app, be sure to do that today, especially as we go through severe weather season. It is available in the Apple iTunes Store, Google Play Store for free. Just type in Weather Tracker TV DFW and it will be right there for you. Of course, also remember you can add our channel on Roku, Apple, Amazon Fire TV. It's also free on there as well as a live 24/7 channel. Otherwise, thanks for watching our weather model discussion on this Wednesday. Like I mentioned, we had to kind of rush through it. Again, if you're seeing this on social media, be sure to give us a like and feel free to leave us a comment below as well. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. And again, we'll talk more about this on here tomorrow.